A very good evening to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Saturday evening. There's no football, so I thought, why not do the preview show of the Liverpool game that's coming up now? Gives you a little bit of football information, given that there's nothing to watch really on TV. It's weird, isn't it? The Saturday before New Year, and there's no football to actually watch, which is I don't know, the TV companies and the Premier League. I don't know what goes in their heads. Anyway, if you're new to this channel, please do hit the subscribe button. And whether you're new or an existing subscriber, please do hit the like button if you enjoy the content. So this is the Liverpool preview. Now, the past 4 games have seen West Ham United pick up 8 points from a possible 12. With wins over Wolves and Southampton, 2 teams languishing in the bottom 4 of the league table, plus picking up a point apiece from the Bournemouth game, who are currently sitting 6th in the league, and Brighton, who have slipped down to 10th in the league. And interestingly, West Ham United are now just 3 points behind Brighton. But despite all that, there's an air of unrest amongst fans because the performances against these 4 teams have not really been great or consistent, and many fans would have expected us to have gotten the results that we have got, but in a much more convincing manner. Many would argue that if any of these 4 teams had taken their chances, we may well have lost all 4 games. And of the 4 games combined, the opposition have had a total of 78 shots against us, of which 25 have been on target. Now, to be fair, we are conceding way too many shots, and better teams are liable to really take us to task if this continues. Now, the worst of the last 4 games was against Bournemouth, where they had 29 shots, of which 9 were on target. It got marginally better against Brighton, where we held them to only 12 shots with only 6 on target. But then we went to Southampton, and they themselves had 18 shots, of which 5 were on target. And up next comes the league's top goal scorers, who have scored 40 goals already in the Premier League alone. And they've only conceded 17 goals, 1 more against Arsenal, who hold the best defensive record in the league. So far in the Premier League this season, Liverpool have had 275 shots in their 17 games, of which 112 have been on target. That averages at around 16 shots per game, with just under 7 on target. So, by all accounts, many fans are expecting Sunday's game to be a backs against the wall, defend scenario. And even then, fans are predicting a cricket score when we host Liverpool on Sunday at the London Stadium. And to be honest, it's really difficult to reason against that kind of thinking, that kind of prediction. If there's anything to be hopeful of, Liverpool are likely to have a few players missing because of suspension and injuries, but their squad depth is admirable, and they should be able to fill any voids with relative ease. Liverpool are easing in Diogo Jota, who's back from a rib injury. He's played a few games, 3 or 4 games already, but mainly from sub-appearances from the bench. It's possible that Jota is likely to start against West Ham on Sunday. But if he doesn't, then, of course, they've got Darwin Núñez, who could lead the line instead. Now, Núñez has only got 2 goals, Premier League goals so far this season, so he's not having the best of times. But he's still a threat. He can still create goals. He can still create chances. His last goal was at the beginning of November when he scored against Aston Villa. And you know what will happen. He'll play against West Ham and he'll get rolling again, won't he? Also likely to be missing is centre-back Ibrahim Konate. So Joe Gomez is likely to partner Virgil van Dijk in central defence again. And young right-back Conor Bradley is another absentee. So Trent Alexander-Arnold will go back to his original role of right-back rather than midfield. And on top of injuries, they have a player who's suspended, Dominic Szoboszlai, will also be missing with a 1-match suspension. Now, Liverpool kind of oozed class throughout their whole squad. And this season, they're likely to retain their midfield three of Alexis McAllister, Ryan Gravenberch, and Curtis Jones, even though Szoboszlai is going to be missing. And then, of course, to complement Nunes if he starts, or Jota if he starts up front, Liverpool are going to have the likes of Cody Gakpo and Mohamed Salah as their wide players. The whole team is solid, and they've got goals galore in them as well. Look, to get anything from this match, we're going to have to be at the top of our game, and we're going to have to, I don't want to say we're going to have to defend for our lives, but we're going to have to defend really solidly against a very good attack-minded Liverpool team. It's going to be interesting to see what first 11 Lopetegui puts out against Liverpool. And if it is an ultra-defensive team, it's almost certain like we're conceding the game before we've even started, and that even Lopetegui is expecting a thumping. And I hope that's not the case. So how about us? Lopetegui is also faced with a selection crisis, given the number of players that we have either injured or out because of suspension. We've picked up an awful lot of yellow cards this season, and several players have already served one-match bans for picking up 5 yellows. The latest to be affected are both Guido Rodriguez and Thomas Soucek. They will both be missing for this game on Sunday, but some would argue that this isn't necessarily a bad thing, and perhaps this answers why Rodriguez was initially chosen in the starting lineup against Southampton over Alvarez, so that the Mexican could not only be rested, but also not risked to pick up a further yellow card, which would have possibly seen him miss this game against Liverpool. But that almost didn't work that well, did it? Because Alvarez had to come on anyway in the second half when Carlos Soler picked up an injury. He aggravated a knee injury that he'd taken into the game against Southampton. But we do welcome back Lucas Paquetá. So kind of he'll be a straight swap for Soler in central midfield. In defence, however, we are missing Lucas Fabianski, and we've been told that he's recovering well. But because he was stretchered off with a head injury, it means that he will definitely have to miss this game. Now, that means, of course, Alphonse Areola is back in the side, and he's got a golden opportunity to demonstrate to Lopetegui that he was wrong to have been dropped in the first place. But he needs to be on his game to keep his place back in the starting lineup. But how unfortunate is it for Areola to actually now come back in the side just when we're facing the league's top goal scorers? Also in the defensive areas, we're likely to be missing Max Kilman. He came off early in the first half of the Southampton game when he landed awkwardly on his shoulder. When Lopetegui conducted his press conference the other day, he seemed to suggest that West Ham United only seem to have 2 senior central defensive players at this moment in time, which seems to suggest that perhaps Kilman may not make it back in time. I don't know if that's a ruse to get Liverpool a full sense of security that Kilman won't be playing. I don't even know if Liverpool need that kind of full sense of security. If we do lose Kilman, if he's not back, then of course the centre-back pairing is likely to be Dinos Mavropanos and Jean-Claire Todibo. But will Lopetegui go with a back 4? Or might he try, as I've suggested, to stifle Liverpool by starting with more defensive players? He could, for example, bring back Aaron Creswell as a left-sided centre-back, and then using Wan-Bissaka and Emerson as wing-backs. That's possible. But as I kind of already alluded to, putting 5 at the back, which is a possibility, does concede somewhat further up the field in midfield and in attack. There are other suggestions that Lopetegui might even go even more defensive and squeeze Soufal in the starting lineup as well, with almost like a 6 at the back setup. Now, that would be madness. And as we may as well throw in the towel if that were to happen. But there are other ways of using all these defensive players, and I'll show you what the setup could look like in a moment. I've already mentioned in midfield, Soler missing, possibly missing, along with Souček and Rodriguez definitely missing, Lopetegui is going to have to shuffle the pack in midfield, with Alvarez and Paqueta returning to the starting lineup. But Lopetegui can use the courage of his convictions and make a bold statement in central midfield. He can, for the first time this season, use the likes of Mohamed Kudus in a central midfield role alongside Alvarez and Paqueta. Now, amongst most things that are missing from the team right now, one of the things is really that we do not have a powerhouse in central midfield who's got the strength, the skill, and the pace to pick the ball up in the heart of our midfield and run with it. Kudus could potentially demonstrate to Lopetegui how used in that central midfield role might give Liverpool, their backline, something to be concerned about. Now, look, I'm not suggesting that Kudus is the answer to a box-to-box midfielder that we need, but he's kind of the closest thing that we may have to that. And if he was to start in central midfield, this will allow Alvarez the time to focus only on defensive midfield duties and hold tight just in front of the defense at the back four or the back five or whatever it may be. And it would also give Lucas Paqueta the opportunity to be more creative from a slightly deeper role in midfield. Plus, Kudus could be a great number 10 foil as support for Nicholas Füllkrug ahead of him if Füllkrug were to start as well. Mohamed Kudus is always going to start this game, and maybe now is the time to use him centrally to see what he can actually offer there. But I doubt very much that Lopetegui is going to go for this. I would imagine that yet again, Kudus is likely to find himself out on the left side of attack, where he has been the least effective all season. Now, given what Lopetegui has said of Kudus in his press conference, he still expects far more from him, especially in his defensive duties. And many a time over the past few games, certainly against Southampton, we saw Kudus lose the ball and not really track back or even try to win the ball back when he lost it. Lopetegui wants Kudus to be an all-rounded footballer and to do his defensive duties as well as his attacking duties. And it's evidence from Kudus's body language that he doesn't seem to have that much interest in tracking back and only has an interest in carrying the ball forward. Look, I guess both men, in their own ways, are right and wrong. Lopetegui wants an all-inclusive team. He wants an all-inclusive team effort. And he suggested that Kudus would be a better all-rounded footballer if he focused as much on his defensive duties as he does on his attacking duties. Kudus is an attack-minded player and will look around the Premier League, certainly at the likes of someone like Mohamed Salah, for example, to demonstrate that he rarely tracks back to help out in defence. And in return, Salah scores many more goals than others when he just focuses on his attacking play. Now, having said all that, we are light in central midfield, and it's more than likely Lopetegui is I think his instinct is going to go more defensively, and it won't surprise me, even if we see, I mentioned about squeezing 6 defenders in the lineup, it won't surprise me if we see the likes of someone like Aaron Wan-Bissaka move into a central midfield role alongside Alvarez and Paqueta, and with Soufal being brought in as a right wing back. Then further up front, it's going to be very interesting to see if Lopetegui persists with Füllkrug, for example. Look, Füllkrug, I think he has his moments. Look, he created the goal for Bowen to score against Southampton, but Füllkrug is the type of player that needs crosses into the box. You know, he's not the best of players to sort of be going out wide, picking up the ball a bit like Antonio does. He focuses centrally on the middle. I don't mind that. I've always said I want my striker to be in the middle, waiting for the ball to come in. But therein lies the crux. If Füllkrug is used, then we're going to have to find a way to get the ball to him. And if we don't, then he's almost wasted there. Look, I don't honestly think that Fulkrug is the answer to West Ham's striker needs. And there's even more talk at the moment about bringing in a striker in the January window. I won't be surprised at all if we do go and get a striker. But whilst we're using Fulkrug, if we're going to use him, then we've got to supply him with the ball. Now, with the lineup, ironically, I just think we played two of our slowest players, probably slowest players in the Premier League, and they were Rodriguez and Fulkrug. And but if we do that against Liverpool, I think we're going to suffer. I think we're going to suffer in our setup. Now, Rodriguez, as I've said, is already out through suspension. And personally, I don't know if I would play Fulkrug in this lineup. Look, I've got a couple of examples of how I think the lineup could be. Areola will definitely be in goal because Fabianski will miss out. If Kilman is injured, then what I'd like to see is a back four of Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Mavropanos, and Emerson. It's not the strongest, but in a way, it allows us to keep our shape for the rest of the team. And then, as I've already suggested, a two in midfield of Alvarez and Paquetá, and I would play Kudus in the middle. Like I've already said, Kudus can take the ball and run in midfield. He can also be a good pivot for Fulkrug further ahead. And then that means we play Blowin and Summerville, who I thought had a really good game when he came on against Southampton, play them out wide. Another alternative could be that I've already mentioned. If he goes a bit more defensive-minded, then at least let's play four at the back again with Soufal taking the right-hand role with Wan-Bissaka alongside Alvarez and Paquetá. And then drop Fulkrug and then play Kudus out on the right, put Summerville on the left and put Bowen up front, who I thought had a decent game when he went up front in the game against Southampton. Now, if I have to go even more defensive-minded, then fine. You could bring someone like Creswell in at the back, play five at the back with Emerson and Wan-Bissaka as wing-backs and have Creswell alongside Todibo and Mavropanos. Have your two pivots in midfield, Paquetá and Alvarez, but then keep the front three as it is, because that will give us something to go on when we're attacking. And I think we're more dynamic with those front three players. Now, what Lopetegui is likely to do, unfortunately, he's likely to drop Summerville. He may well go with a five at the back, with Soufal right wing back, with Creswell as a left-sided centre-back. But then he'll go with Wan-Bissaka, as I've suggested, in midfield. And I think he'll probably drop Summerville and play Kudus and Bowen up front. That's not altogether too bad, but we're kind of left a little bit light, I think. I don't know. He could go worse, though. And he could still play Fulkrug up front, again with a back five, with a two in midfield, drop Summerville again, and then this time play Fulkrug up front. For me, I think that's the worst lineup. If I was to go for any, I think this lineup, I wouldn't mind. You got defensive solidity with Wan-Bissaka as a wing-back. You got Creswell in there. You got the midfield two pivot of Alvarez and Paquetá, and then have the front three. Have the front three of Kudus, Bowen, and Summerville. That, for me, is the best scenario. But then I'm not Lopetegui. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. Look, I'm dreading giving a prediction for this game because, quite honestly, it's going to be a tough game. But if we concede, in our lineup, and have too many defensive-minded players on the pitch, that's allowing Liverpool to really come at us, and I worry about that. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. If we get anything out of this game, it's got to be seen as a massive positive. But let's see what happens. A Desmond for me, I think. Let's see what you say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button. And please also, whether you're new or an existing subscriber, please do hit the like button and leave your comments below and tell me what kind of scoreline you're predicting. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back on Sunday after the game with a roundup. Thanks, and I'll see you all very soon.